Lafleur lounged at the far end of the Canadiens' bench, visor fogged, shoulders heaving, a cigarette glowing between his fingers. One drag, two drags. Then the whistle snapped him upright. He flipped the butt beneath the boards, vaulted the dasher, and on the very next rush ripped a rising slap shot that detonated behind the goalie before the smoke had even cleared. How did a man who chain smoked during intermissions and partied till dawn still bend the NHL to his will and become the pulse of a dynasty? Tonight we retrace the unruly orbit of Démon Blond and learn why greatness sometimes smells like cigarette ash and bubblegum tape. Thurso, Quebec sits on the Ottawa River and rarely makes headlines, but every winter in the 1950s, one floodlight glowed brighter than the rest of town combined. Lafleur would hose his backyard until the grass vanished beneath a mirror of ice, then watch his 5-year-old son carve loops long after other kids traded skates for pajamas. Some nights the boy nodded off in full equipment on the couch, thin layer of frost still clinging to his shoulder pads. Coaches noticed, so did the record books. By 10, Lafleur dropped 70 goals in a single youth season, an absurd figure locals recited like a campfire legend. If Thurso whispered his name, Quebec City screamed it. With the Ramparts in 1970 to 71, Lafleur vaporized the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. 130 goals, 209 points, 62 games, numbers normally reserved for video games set on rookie. Montreal Canadiens general manager Sam Pollock sensed a once-in-a-generation fuse burning. He fleeced California for their 71 first-round pick, then nudged LA just high enough in the standings to guarantee Oakland finished dead last. When draft day arrived, Pollock owned the top choice, and amid deafening forum chants of Lafleur, selected the homegrown phenomenon. The price of that master stroke, instant, crushing expectations. Stepping into the Canadiens' locker room in 1971 felt like time traveling into the Hall of Fame. Béliveau's name still echoed, Henri Richard's wrists still flashed, and Stanley Cup banners drooped from every rafter like red velvet reminders of perfection. Lafleur, helmet strapped tight, logged modest ice time and produced respectable but hardly legendary totals. 29, 28, then 21 goals. Montreal papers compared him mercilessly to Marcel Dion, who was racking up points in Detroit like pinball scores. Fans muttered that Pollock's chess game might have checkmated the wrong king, yet veterans saw a different tableau. Endless extra wind sprints, broken sticks from over-practice, a smile that turned wolfish whenever the puck found his blade. Then, in October 1974, he unbuckled the headgear for good. Golden hair streamed behind him like a comet's tail, and something primordial ignited. 53 goals and 119 points erupted that season, merely warm-up for the detonation to follow. 6 straight years cracked the 50-goal and 100-point barriers, a feat unmatched at the time by Howe, Hull, or anyone else who'd ever tied laces. He snagged the Art Ross in 76, shattered the franchise single-season record with 136 points in 77, and pocketed back-to-back Hart trophies for good measure. Opponents claimed his first 3 strides erased defensive structure. By his 3rd stride, he was already unloading a wrist shot the goalie heard but seldom saw. Montreal harvested 4 consecutive Stanley Cups in that window, and every parade route smelled faintly of beer, confetti, and number 10s burning tobacco. Between periods, Lafleur leaned against concrete corridors of the Forum, visor pushed up, smoke curling under the fluorescent lights. Trainers pretended not to notice. Hard to lecture a man who'd just tallied 2 and assisted another. After final buzzer, he'd swap the sweater for a tailored suit, slide into a white Cadillac Eldorado, and roar uphill toward Crescent Street, the disco artery where Montreal's glitterati pulsed until dawn. Bartenders poured before he ordered, DJs cued Staying Alive when he stepped through the door. By 3:30, he'd be steering home through pinkish pre-sunrise haze, only to glide onto practice ice at 9, still the quickest skater by a stride and a half. Teammate Sarge Savard swore the Flower could log a hat trick after 6 hours of dancing and 0 hours of sleep. Cigarettes lined his jacket pocket like victory cigars, and the city adored him for living the fantasy on their behalf. Invincibility met steel on March 24th, 1981. Exhausted, Lafleur dozed behind the wheel. A fence post speared through the windshield and nicked his ear. He survived, but the incident cracked the aura. Hamstrings tweaked, groin pulled, lungs rasped. New coach Jacques Lemaire, once Lafleur's line mate, preached defense first, slashing Lafleur's minutes and banishing him from the top power play unit. The Flower wilted in shadow, tallying only 2 goals through 19 games in 84-85 before requesting a trade. Management refused, so on a gray November morning, the greatest entertainer in hockey history quietly retired at 33, his departure announced in a cramped press room rather than a roaring arena. The Forum felt wrong without the scent of his smoke drifting down from the bench. 4 years passed. He launched a helicopter charter service, swung a few golf clubs, but the itch never faded. Phil Esposito dialed from New York, offered fresh Madison Square Garden ice, and Lafleur lunged. Opening night of 1988-89, he skated a ceremonial lap, jet black Rangers jersey clinging to a slightly thicker torso, then logged 18 goals and 27 assists at age 37. When the schedule sent him back to Montreal, 17,003 fans bombarded an opposing player with the loudest ovation the Forum had issued since the dynasty days. He scored twice on Patrick Roy that night. Nobody booed. 1 year later, he joined the Quebec Nordiques to mentor Joe Sakic, still crushing heaters in hotel bathrooms while the rookie captain stared in awe. His final point total, 1,353, isn't merely a number, it's a monument to stubborn brilliance. Hockey immortality greeted Lafleur early. He entered the Hall of Fame in 1988, remarkably before lacing up for his comeback, and watched his number 10 ascend to the rafters 3 years prior in 1985. Those ceremonies felt like coronations, but they only hinted at the cultural footprint he left on Quebec. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, he toured junior rinks as an ambassador, posing for every photo, signing every stick, and teaching teenagers that joy is a performance enhancer. He lent his name to hospitals, children's charities, and a helicopter air rescue program because, as he put it, I owe the fans every breath I still take. Mortality arrived in 2019 when surgeons discovered lung cancer during emergency bypass surgery, an ironic twist for a man synonymous with cigarette smoke. He greeted chemo with the same grin he once flashed between shifts and used the spotlight to push early detection campaigns in both French and English. Even after sessions that left him drained, he'd shuffle into autograph lines, insisting he was only paying back interest on a very lucky life. When he passed on 22nd April 2022 at age 70, the province collectively paused. National television carried the state funeral live. Highways into Montreal gridlocked as thousands in vintage jerseys converged on the Bell Center, which transformed into a shrine of flowers, number 10 flags, and half-burnt lucky strikes left in tribute. Former rivals, from Don Cherry to Boris Alming, called him the greatest showman our sport will ever see. In the weeks that followed, sales of vintage Canadian sweaters spiked, junior players dyed their hair blonde, and Crescent Street bars revived his favorite playlist. Proof that true legends don't expire. They recycle themselves through every fan who ever rose from a seat before his shot even crossed center ice. Long before athletes hired social media teams or launched signature apparel, Lafleur turned charisma into currency. The cigarette dangling from his lips, the silk suit draped over his shoulders, even the gold-flecked shampoo commercial he filmed in 1978, each became a revenue stream and a cultural touchstone. Quebec breweries plastered his grin across tall boys. A national gas station chain handed out plastic Lafleur sticks with every fill-up. Kids in Rimouski lined up for Lafleur-branded street hockey blades, the way today's teenagers chase limited edition sneakers. He wasn't just selling products, he was selling a feeling, that electric shiver you got when number 10 picked up the puck in full flight. The marketing bonanza carried a deeper resonance inside French-speaking Canada. At a time when linguistic tensions simmered, here was a homegrown francophone idol conquering an institution historically run by anglophones, and doing it on his own flamboyant terms. Politicians quoted him in speeches about cultural pride. Rock band Offenbach wrote arena anthems in his honor. Statues of Le Démon Blond sprouted outside municipal arenas from Gaspé to Gatineau. Even opponents admitted his mere presence boosted ticket sales in every barn on the circuit. Decades later, auction houses still erupt whenever a game-worn Lafleur jersey surfaces, and the Bank of Canada quietly explored a commemorative coin after his passing, acknowledging that few figures stitch sport, commerce, and identity so seamlessly. Perhaps the most overlooked chapter in his off-ice resume is mentorship, not just to Joe Sakic in Quebec, but to wave after wave of NHL prospects who rang his phone for wisdom on navigating stardom. Lafleur never lectured about curfews or diets. He preached joy. If you're not smiling with the puck, the crowd will never feel it, he told one teenager who later became a league MVP. That philosophy echoes today in every lacrosse-style goal, every celly that sends water bottles flying, every YouTube highlight tagged vintage flair. In essence, Lafleur wrote the modern superstars playbook years before Instagram or advanced analytics existed. Combine unfiltered personality, fearless creativity, and just enough mystery to make the public lean closer. Now, as the NHL markets skill over size and style over systems, it's clear the Flower wasn't an outlier. He was a time traveler, flicking ash from the future onto the frozen surface of the past. A cigarette dangling from his lips, a graphite CCM stick tapping impatiently at his skates. Lafleur rewrote the bargain between discipline and genius. He chain smoked through intermissions, yet skated as though nicotine itself powered his first 3 strides. He drained champagne till dawn, yet harvested more hardware than entire franchises manage in a century. Sports science insists his regimen was impossible. The Flower simply made impossible a nightly routine. Today's stars monitor sleep cycles on smart rings, weigh protein shakes to the gram, and carry personal chefs on road trips. Yet you wonder whether any could survive even one Lafleur-style week of 2-pack days, disco infernos, and 26 minutes of ice time. More importantly, would the game be poorer without such beautiful chaos? Every time a young phenom lets the hair flow, rips a one-timer in stride, and grins like the rink is his private carnival, a little wisp of Lafleur's smoke drifts through the rafters. So tell me, which modern player, McDavid, Kucherov, Matthews, could thrive under those neon 1970s nights and still dominate the way Lafleur did? Drop your pick in the comments, share your favorite Fleur moment, and hit subscribe for more untamed sagas from hockey's wild side. Because legends may fade on the stat sheet, but the Flower's scent, equal parts sweat, pine tar, and sweet tobacco, still lingers in every cold breath swirling above an ice sheet. Until next time, keep skating like dawn never comes, and your story might just catch fire too.